Welcome, I'm Captain Stromberg, and today I'm going to show you some things about how to use loops using the Mindstorm EV3. This is some very important things in order to make some programs, and there's a few gotchas with the loops that we're going to get into that if you don't know you can have problems with. So first of all, we're going to go grab a loop block and we'll just put the loop block up. And the loop block right now, it's going to just keep looping forever. You can select some various options on when you want the loop to exit, and logic is a very common one, count is a very common one you can use, or you can use some of the more fancy things like your sensors. You can have it stop when you're a certain distance from something, or you could have a timer so it goes for a certain amount of times. You can count motor rotations, so there are many different ways you can use it. Right now we're just going to have this go for a count, and we'll have this go for 10 times. And what are we going to have happen in our loop? Well, you can use many different things to happen in your loop. I'm going to make the loop just a little bit bigger for us to use it here. And we're going to do something very simple, and we're going to use some variables. And we're going to have a variable, and we are going to call this variable count. And we're just going to start counting some numbers. And we should always initialize our variables at the beginning of each program. So here we are going to write count to 0. So it's going to start off at 0. Then inside the loop we are going to read the number for count. Then we're going to use a simple little math block, and we're going to read this, put it into the math block, we're going to add 1, and then we're going to come over here to our count and we're going to write that to our count. And so as this goes through, each time it goes through, it should add 1 to our count. And then what we want to do here is we want to see what our number is when we get done with the program. And there's an easy way to do that. If you read the number, and then you can write it over here, and then we can put a wait block at the end and wait for 60 seconds. And that'll allow us to have time after the program runs to be able to look and see what the variables are inside of each of these. We can put our mouse over it, and when the program's running, it'll show you what the numbers are. So I am connected via Bluetooth to my robot, and I am just going to go ahead and run this program. And it quickly went through there, and you can see that the number is 10. And that's what we expected, because it went through here, started with 0, it added 1, looped through, added 1 to 1, which gave us 2, and kept doing that until we got to 10. Now, we can also put in a loop inside of a loop. So we can put this loop right here. We can have this loop count and go through 10 times. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have this loop count 10 times. So it's going to come inside this loop, come inside this loop. It's going to add 1. It's going to loop 10 times. And so we're going to be at 10. Then after it's done that, it's going to exit and come back into the loop, this loop, and count 10 more times. So this should give us a number of 100 when it's all done. And there it went and ran it, and now we have 100. So we have a loop within a loop, and this is just using the numbers here because that's an easy way to show you what's happening. So we can stop the program, and now let's take a look at a little something, and instead of using this count, we're going to have this loop for unlimited. And for right now, I'm going to go ahead and go back to a single loop and take this loop out. And instead of exiting this way, we are going to use a switch block, and we are going to use a loop interrupter. And so when the switch block is true, the loop will be interrupted. And you can see the loop interrupter has a number 1, and this loop has a number 1, so this will exit out of that loop if something is true. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and go to our variable, and we are going to check to see if it's equal to 10, then we're going to get out of the loop. There's the compare. It took me a little bit longer than it probably should have. So we're going to just check to see if, and we're going to take our number directly from there because that's the simplest way to do it. And if it's equal to 10, then instead of using the touch sensor, we're going to use logic. And if it's true, we are going to go ahead and exit the loop. So now this is set up for infinity, and when this is equal to 10, it should exit the loop. So if we go ahead and run the program, and apparently I did something wrong because we are well over 10. So, I didn't connect this to here, so that's why that's not working. So it's always a good lesson here to make sure you connect everything how it's supposed to be connected, otherwise things don't work. And when things don't work, check to make sure you have all of your blocks connected how they're supposed to be. So we're going to go ahead and try this again, run it. And now we're out of the loop and it is equal to 10. So that's what we were expecting out of this. And so we used a slightly different way to get to there. All right, now I want to start and make this just a little bit more complicated. And we're going to take another loop and we're going to put that in here. And we're going to take this loop and put it inside of that loop. So now we've got a loop inside of a loop. So when we had this before, it would count to 100. But it's not going to do that this time for a couple different reasons. The first of all is, go ahead and run the program. And you can see we only get a value of 10. And why is that? Because we run through, we get the first loop, we get into the second loop, and it comes in here and it goes through 10 times. When it's equal to 10, then this logic is true. Then it hits the loop interrupter, and here it exits all the loops that are 1. And this is 1, and this is 1. So it exits both of these loops, and then comes out here, and the value is only 10. So in this case, it's not going through both loops because the loop interrupter exits both of them. And the other thing to know is if you had a MyBlock, if you put this code inside of a MyBlock and had that loop interrupter in a MyBlock and then had that loop inside of another loop named 1, this would still exit all of those loops. So whenever you put a loop inside of a MyBlock that you might use inside of another loop, you always need to make sure you change your loop names. And so here, we could call this count 1, and we could call this count 1. And in this case, it would only X out of this loop. Now, the other complicating thing that we have is if we tried to run this right now, it would go a little funny on us because the inside loop exits when it equals to 10. So if I were to run this, what's going to happen is that it's going to get stuck. And why it's going to get stuck is because it's not equal to 10. It's gotten past that point, and so it's going to just keep on running and running and running. And so that's why sometimes like if you're measuring distance with the motors, you don't want to use an exact equals. You want to say equals or greater than or equal to, and then you should stop, so you don't run into this kind of problem right here. So that's some basic loops and how to use them. And very, very important is the loop interrupter and making sure you change the names on those, especially if you're using loops in MyBlocks. And I hope you found this informative. And in my next video, we're going to look at a couple of different ways of using loops with multitasking, which could be very useful in making more accurate programs. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a good day.